Somewhere in Kenya, tables are full of food and other glizzy accompaniments, a carnival mood to epitomize Christmas celebrations, just enough to fill one's belly. But on the flip side, more than enough to quench the appetite of 10 families in Turkana district for a whole week, a reflection of the severity of food crisis in the region. Contrary to the merriments that are brought about by Christmas festivities, it is disturbing that some people in Turkana are fighting for their lives, having gone without a meal for the last 24 hours. Deep inside the dry plains of Kour village in the North Pokot district, the gaiety and the good tidings that accompany the season is a rare disposition. In fact, the term Christmas to them can as well mean a disaster. The clouds have for the better part of the last 3 years declined to respond to their rain gods and instead chosen to leave the ground barren with fatal consequences. Here you might mistake their zeal to find wild berries for a sport, but theirs is a wild jamboree in the hunt of poisonous berries in the dangerous woods where marauding raiders strike heartlessly. Their men are therefore forced to keep a close eye on them in the woods lest they fall prey to the snipers. And mind you, what they bring home is not readily edible. These children will have to wait for another 12 hours as their mothers recycle the poisonous berries in boiling water numerous times to dilute the poison in them. However, it was not all bad news during our visit to the village, and blessings, it seems for once, followed us to the village with the arrival of a calf. But since the animals are starving, the others could not produce enough for the calf and her master's family. In fact, the little milk that could be salvaged after a fight with the calf had to be mixed with herbal water to save the little kirur from the pangs of hunger. What struck our hearts is the generosity of the community amid scarcity. Women in the village quickly solicited for cereals that had been reserved for those who might be injured during banditry attacks or when one falls extremely ill. This was to serve as our supper for the night in the remote village, and in their crude way, which turned out to be effective. They embarked on grinding the maize into flour to make ugali for the guests. It was nightfall. Then our food was served with milk solicited from the entire village.
This is very nice, boss.
On the other side, men were preparing a delicacy, the only way they knew best. It was a rudimentary form of slaughtering the innocent goat, but a delicious meal that was to finally end up in our tummies. This is hospitality at its very best, although in a small and humble way. With the meager resources here, these people could still afford this big feast for us. Because life is too hard and no one is aware of tomorrow's challenges in the Plains of Peril, the villagers turn to their God for divine intervention. A session that climaxes with praise songs to welcome the next day. After a long and taxing day of herding and patrolling under a scorching sun, it's amazing that these people can still find time to sing their best tunes to Tororot for seeing them through the day, and perhaps to ask him for mercies to see them through the challenges that tomorrow may bring. Kendagor Obadiah reporting for Channel 1 from the Pokot North District. These are no strange scenes in this torturous terrain of the North Rift. In fact, they are just but a reflection of the wider pastoral region, a fate that has left in its wake a trail of deaths and untold anguish. With the never-ending cases of insecurity perpetuated by cattle rustling, it is a territory that seems to have been forgotten, leaving its security at the mercy of the forces of nature. A natural world that has been at the very least vicious. The presence of the much-dreaded GSU personnel could in other parts of the country send chills down the spines of the locals, but in this tricky terrain, the few officers present appears outmaneuvered, both in numbers and firepower, by the heavily armed bandits. In this hopeless situation, even the government security officers are left vulnerable to attacks and would on several occasions rely on the local security detail for reinforcement. This explains why the fix-it-on-your-own idea took root in this region, prompting the locals to arm themselves. And in truth, these are the security proteges who offer protection to those entitled to shelter them in the time of banditry storm. The Kenya Police reservists recruited to supplement the government security forces in the region are few and poorly equipped. Their martial deficiency perhaps well told by a military drill simulation on one of the aging Mark IV rifles from one of the reservists, which requires to be cocked every time it fires. To what extent would this old gun respond to rapid and sustained gunfire from a trigger-happy bandit in possession of the more advanced and versatile Kalashnikov and armed to the tooth? This would need to be supplemented with firepower of the same might and facility. The G3 rifle performance is undoubted, but residents have faulted its ability to sustain a fierce gun battle as cartridges would jam in the gun chamber when it hits, and this demands frequent lubrication to keep it firing. Though having to execute their mandate without pay, the Kenya Police reservists operating in this region seem to outperform their regular counterparts.
Police, unakulana pesa, KBR, unamamalisha damu mingi sana. Hakuna pesa unakula. Ini tu nataka sasa kuambia serikali kusaidieni tu kama kula mwezi mmoja.
In both the Pokot and Turkana communities, there are peace-loving locals who have taken advantage of the mobile telephone service to monitor bandits. It is encouraging that in collaboration with KPR, these local warriors alert their peace-loving counterparts from the rival communities upon suspecting a raid from their own tribesmen in the making. Unfortunately, paying for this prepaid service is a tall order for a community that is grappling with poverty and hunger. This besides the poor network coverage in the area, but which won't deter the vigilantes from achieving their goal. For theirs is a kingdom, a realm where peace only seems to exist in theory, exposing in its populace to the underlying dangers of banditry, in a region where the Mother Nature dictates the remote possibility of living to see another day. Kendagor Obadiah for Channel 1 in the Plains of Peril.